Unit stop rate 7 out 4. Phillips Island Virgin collapse.
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to today's episode of Boss Talk. We're live here from Public Service Training Academy at the Command Lab. Change of venue at the last moment. We were going to run from 32, but we moved it here from the Command Lab. Always excited to be back here. Anyway, if you're a certified chief officer requesting or wanting to receive COPDI credit, remember there's not many opportunities left in the calendar year 2022. Make sure that you sign in now on the YouTube chat with your fire service ID and your last name, and then do the same when you're done viewing the episode. So today's episode is slated for an hour. We'll see how that plays out. We're excited to bring to you a TRT event, which was a trench rescue call a few months ago in Company 32's area on Veirs Drive. We don't have, right in the course of a year, we don't have tons of TRT calls that end up being, right, a true TRT event where folks go to work. In this trench rescue call, certainly that happened. One other housekeeping thing is if you're watching from a firehouse with a bunch of people, if you would mind, don't mind in the chat putting in what firehouse and how many people are watching. So we want to get started, and I'm just going to turn it over right now to Captain Brady Miller, who's going to be our moderator for today's episode. Captain Miller.
Chief, thank you. First thing, let me introduce all the people on the panel today. At the end of the table, we have Lieutenant McGrain from 25 on the B shift, Captain Mallon, 32 on the B shift, and Lieutenant Hayes from, Jesus Christ, 31, I'm sorry, on the A shift. So I think I'm going to do this a little bit different today. So this is, our last couple of these, we have done a water rescue from the command post. We have done the Twin Brook water rescue. So we have kind of encompassed our special operations component. I think when these calls come, they're few and far between, like Chief Davis said. So I want to start, and I don't care which one of you two answer this, just really an overview of special ops, of TRT, of that. Which one of you guys want to do that?
Sure. So TRT consists of four disciplines, right? Collapse rescue, trench rescue, confined space, and rope rescue. All the equipment is based out of Station 31 with a support complement coming out of Company 29 and Company 25. On duty, every day there are 10 certified, and when I say certified, having all four specialties, TRT members, including 2 TRT officers.
What's the time frame, like the training? I'm a new firefighter. I'm getting ready to come off probation. We have a group that's coming off next month. It's something that interests me. I see a spot open at 25. What's the process from really kind of start to finish to be one of those 5 guys that will be on the floor at Company 25?
So it's the 4 classes, and they try to put them on every 2-year cycle. So you have 2 years from the date that you get accepted onto the team. Basically, when you transfer, you just put in a special operations application, and then you.
And is it pretty solid to say it's going to take me 2 years to become?
Yeah, that's probably reasonable.
Okay. So it's a commitment.
Yeah.
Well-trained. These guys are committed. All of those types of things. And so does the officer at 25 need to be anything, or is a TRTO at 31 and 29?
There's nobody guaranteed at Station 25 to be tech rescue on any given day. They do have a hazmat company.
So it's a hosh posh, really?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then 10 got 10 a day. And what do you know what I forgot what the water complement is. Do you guys know what that is?
I think it's something like 4 each at Stations 10 and 30.
Okay. So I guess really, thank you. Let's kind of start with the audio, if we will, the 7 Alpha audio of this event.
9608 Veirs Drive, Cross Street Airport Drive, unknown emergency. Medic 731, paramedic agent 732, response 7 Alpha 1, box area 3213. Unit stop rate 7 Alpha 4, field stop for trench collapse. Medic 731, paramedic engine 732, tower 703, rescue squad 703, rescue squad 729, paramedic engine 731, TR 700. Support 729, support 731, support 725, guided 703, ambulance 703, operate 7 Alpha 4, box area 3213, 1350.
All right, so that was a whole lot of stuff really fast. So tell me what, and we saw that the initial dispatch was an unknown rescue, right, Captain?
Yes.
Which was an engine ambulance, quickly upgraded to a trench. What does that bring me?
So you're going to get, there's 2 technical rescue box trucks called Tech Rescue 700 and Tech Rescue 700 Bravo, as well as our trench collapse trailer at Station 31. You'll also get Rescue Squad 729. And so within that, you'll get your 10 personnel minimum, and you might get some other units, engine, truck from 29, 25, bring in additional personnel.
Are team members that working at not one of those houses, are they coming on these calls? If I have a guy riding a backstep engine 702, is he going to go, hey, Captain, I got to go to this call in Rockville?
So not on the initial dispatch, there's something called consolidated and unconsolidated. So those folks working at 29, 25, 31 are consolidated. They'll respond on the initial call. If we need more personnel on the scene, we can ask for the non-consolidated folks, and typically they all have a station in each battalion that's predetermined they'll go to. They'll consolidate onto as few rigs as possible and then come into the scene.
So the consolidation doesn't happen on scene, it happens prior to them
Yes.
responding? Okay. And that's something that the TRTO is going to request?
Yes, so we'd request that through command and in the dock, and they would.
Okay, so
would
it's,
get that out.
okay. Captain Allen, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
So walk me through, walk me through what happened.
Yeah, so like you said, it was dispatched as an unknown emergency, right? Single engine and an EMS unit. Got to the wagon, hit en route, and it was probably not until we cleared the firehouse that they had upgraded it, right? We're going to Veirs Drive, which is a street that we travel quite a bit in
Yeah.
the first do.
So can we throw a map up real quick,
Kind of
guys?
familiar with the area.
Of, maybe where the firehouse is and where this call was. So the red dot, is that where the call is? That
Yeah.
correct?
Yep.
So, and then kind of where Shady Grove Parking Garage, that's where the firehouse is. So we're
Firehouse right there at the top.
a solid 1 minute away.
Maybe, yeah, 1 minute away. So
Okay.
a lot of information coming across the MDC as we're going to the call. Like I said, we travel Veirs Drive quite a bit, right? But this is an even address, so it's on the opposite side of the road that we normally are used to going to. I knew that there were homes that were under construction in the area, but I had no idea really which house it was. The box maps, street maps don't even show those single families on them. Had a detail driver that day. Guy's very good, knows the area, drives me quite a bit actually. My firefighter was a guy that, like, second day is minimum staffing in the field, like just learned how to take a blood pressure and we're going to a trench call. And my normal paramedic, Justine. So we're heading down the road, and as I'm getting updates, I'm giving them some guidance on, like, if this is a real trench call, right? What I want them to do when they get on scene, deploy some ground ladders to the edge of the trench while I get
So
them
hold on. I'm just going to pause you for a second.
Sure.
So how much stuff is coming over the MDC?
A lot of stuff.
And you have 1 minute
Yeah.
to digest that stuff, figure out where you're going, talk to your detailed driver, And talk to the people in the back of the fire truck?
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
Okay. What kind of stuff did the driver, you said drives you pretty regularly,
Mm-hmm.
so he or she were good with where they were going, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so minimal direction
Mm-hmm.
there. What kind of stuff were you saying to the people in the back of the fire truck?
Well, like I said, my normal paramedic and a brand new firefighter, right? Now, we talked about this before, but this was my first legit trench rescue that I've run as an officer or even as an employee in the county. But, you know, having worked in stations like 25 where you're surrounded by guys that talk about this all the time, and I had an idea of what my plan was, and I was just telling those guys in the back, like, if there's someone in the trench, we need to make sure that we're going to put some ground ladders to kind of distribute weight if we need to travel around the trench. So they knew exactly what I wanted when we pulled up.
Okay.
Yeah, that kind of
So really kind of back to the whole research kind of. That's where you get your information. Like, we're not talking about trenches at Company 2, buddy. I'll tell you that right now.
Okay.
So, you know, in 60 seconds, I don't know how much stuff I could get out.
Right.
Maybe I need to be talking about trenches at Company 2. But all that kind of came back from research?
Probably research, and like I said, being surrounded by it, working at Company 25 with those guys for so many years.
Okay. So you get there. What do you do? Tell me. Let's pick up the story from there.
Yeah, so anybody who's been to Veirs Drive from 32, you get to a four-way stop sign there. We make the left on Veirs, and like I said, I'm looking on the right, the officer side of the rig, because it's an even number. As we're approaching the 9800 block where they just built the new mid-rises there, I realized that there was a home that we had seen under construction. So I assumed that's where we were going. It was in the general area of that, but by the time we were approaching the home, we got a waiver that kind of jumped out in the street, and unfortunately, for planning purposes, I realized at that point we were on top of or just passing the trench, right?
So the trench is on the side of the road,
yeah, like
not
right up against the side,
against
like,
the house,
not part of the construction of the home or anything like that.
side of the road.
Yeah.
And I think they have there some pictures that they're flipping through now rapidly.
So you see, it's on the corner of the home, but not part of the construction of the home or anything like that. Like, I thought we were going to the driveway of the house.
Uh-huh.
Right?
And we find ourselves parked next to it.
Yeah. So where you see the TR trailer here, that's originally where we had
That white trailer is the TR trailer?
Yes.
Okay.
parked the wagon. So just past the trench.
Okay.
So my folks got off and deployed the ladders like I instructed them to.
What's the scene look like when you get there?
It was pretty frantic. A lot of guys running around. There was a big language barrier. Initially, what I wanted to do was figure out how many people we had in the trench, because I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but in the MDC updates, there was information of how many people were in the trench. Like, sometimes there was 1 and 2. They kind of updating this as we were going down. When I got out of the wagon, there was a gentleman climbing out of the trench on a ladder, and there was still 2 in the trench. So I think with my initial on-scene report, you're going to hear me say that there were 2. One of the guys in there was helping the other guy, trying to get him out.
Okay.
Yeah, but in my opinion, it seemed like those guys had been there a while. They had the wherewithal to take a wooden pallet and place it up against the area of the collapse to try to keep that from coming back in. And it looked like they had worked for a little while before calling up.
Trying to get this guy out before they made the 911 call. All right, can we listen to Captain Allen's on-scene report?
Dedication 732 Montgomery. I'm on the scene. I'll go ahead and establish tactical command. At this point, I have 2 in a trench, approximately 8 feet deep. Looks like I got 1 buried up to about his knee.
Montgomery's okay.
All right, that's probably good. Is there more stuff you want to listen to, Jason?
No, I think that was pretty much it.
So we have 2 in the trench, 1 buried up to their waist.
It looked like I didn't want to get into the trench, obviously.
Certainly.
I wanted to just kind of get close enough where I could see down in there. And to me, it looked like he had, when the dirt came down on him, it pushed him over, and I could see part of his thigh, but not all of it. So he was kind of, buried from that mid-thigh down.
Okay. So initial thought is, hey, let's move the fire truck.
Yes.
we're too close to,
Yes,
the,
we
to
did
this
that.
issue. Certainly not of your own fault, right? You just happened to be there. Next would be to,
Isolate and deny entry, right? I looked for hazards around, as you guys can see in the photos, if they show them again, like all the power lines are above ground here. There was a manhole cover that was open, a manhole with the cover off, next to the trench.
in the street.
No, right, like within, I don't know, 4 feet of the trench. And I think that was what they were working on, something that had to do with that, a water shut off or something. So we replaced that manhole cover to make sure none of us fell into it. And it was just trying to get those guys, there was a lot of emotion, obviously.
Certainly. Their buddy's buried up to his waist.
Yeah, and trying to get those fellas to back away and kind of let us do our job. Yeah.
Was that challenging with 4 people?
It was very challenging, yeah. Yeah, very challenging.
Okay.
They didn't want to listen to us, right? I get it. Like you said, their buddy's buried up to his waist. So,
Yeah.
it was difficult to kind of get that to happen initially.
So the ladder plan that you talked about, I never thought about that until you told me the story a little bit ago. Excellent idea, I would guess. I'm hoping you guys can touch on that a little bit. What else kind of were you thinking about? Like, I know that you have a group coming for 31, which is not that far away.
Yeah.
So your time on scene is very limited. What can I accomplish? What do I think about accomplishing in that limited time frame?
I mean, pretty much after that, a volunteer command officer had shown up. He had established or taken the command from me.
Okay. Helpful?
I don't know initially if it was.
Okay.
Like, I think that if he hadn't been right behind me, maybe I would have said, we would have gotten kind of a quicker grasp on the situation instead of the two of us kind of, running around each other, right, trying to get things straight. But I have an excellent paramedic that works for me, and right when Medic 731 pulled up, I assigned her to go work with them, to help out. The new firefighter, I was kind of giving him tasks to kind of keep him away from the trench area, right? Like I said, the guy just learned how to take a blood pressure, so I don't want to get him too involved in that. So
Fire line tape.
Yeah, fire line tape, set stuff up, block the scene off, that kind of thing like that. So
Were the police there?
I think the guys from the TRT got there before the
Okay.
police.
So we couldn't use them to help move people?
No, I mean, eventually they shut down Veirs Drive at Glen Mill, and then on the other side.
But initially, we're just overwhelmed.
We did,
with
I believe we
masks.
did have one car that decided they were going to come through, right after we arrived on scene. So I think we only let one car passed, but yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. Let's move to after the dispatch. So you're working at 31, right?
That's right.
And where were you working?
29.
29. Okay, so you're coming on Rescue Squad 729?
Yep.
And you're coming with the TR complement
That's right.
from 31. What's that response like at Station 31?
So it takes a few minutes. Everybody's obviously got their gear on the rigs and everything else. We've got to make sure we have all of our tech rescue gear. It's in separate bags. Make sure that it's on the rigs. Make sure I know where everybody's going. On this particular call, the engine was also dispatched as an engine company. We couldn't take it, didn't have enough personnel, so I had to let Montgomery know to replace it. And I believe the medic unit was also dispatched on the initial assignment for the unknown emergency, so they were already out the door. So it takes a few minutes for us to get everything out.
So is it safe to say, hey, we might be 5 minutes before we get out of this?
That's right, yeah.
What can I do from Tacoma Park to help you expedite that?
There's really not much you can do as long as, we just need to know we have the right call type. For instance, we have to hook up our trench trailer and bring that on a call. If we don't know it's a trench rescue, let's say somebody says it's a collapse or it's a confined space or something else, if we don't have the right call type, we may not bring the right equipment, so we need to know.
So that really good, solid, early information?
Right.
And am I conveying that through Montgomery, or am I calling Station 31 from my cell phone? Am I using the apparatus phone? Am I using the alternate talk group? What's the best way to do that?
Right, so you should let ECC know through the radio. They typically are going to send the right assignment, the right resources.
Are they going to
let us
ask
know.
me the right questions?
They should, yeah.
Okay. All right. So you, and I guess that's what the TRTO is managing at
Right.
29 and 31?
Mhm.
Okay. So you get on the road, I mean, you aren't 7 or 8 minutes from Veirs Drive from 31. What kind of things are going through your head?
So I wanted to know from personnel on the scene what type of trench we're dealing with, how many patients.
When you say type of trench, help me understand that.
So different types of trench. For instance, if it's deeper than this trench was, this was about 8 feet, which is pretty standard. It's a pretty easy thing to do. If it was 12 or 20 feet deep, it requires a lot more shoring, a different plan from us. And
Do you
also,
bring a different vehicle?
No, it's really just getting thoughts going in my
Okay.
head and everybody else to know what we're dealing with.
And are you guys talking amongst yourselves while this is like Captain Allen's talking in the back of the fire truck, and we get off, get some ladders. You're doing the same thing?
Kind of. Unfortunately, we're separated at Station 31. It's 2 guys basically in every unit, so
Okay.
I can't communicate with everybody all at once. So, and we don't have MDCs in any of those units. So
You aren't getting any of the MDC
No.
updates that.
And so you understand, especially in this call, why I'm asking those questions is because
What
I don't
type of
have any
questions are you
information.
asking?
Yeah. So it was basically what I said. What's the depth of the trench?
Do we have that audio, or we just want?
Yeah, you can pull
What do you
that
want
up.
to do?
Sure. Let's listen to it.
All right, let's listen to a little bit more audio.
If Charlie Montgomery, I'm going to establish stationary command. Across the street, we're calling Veirs Command. I got 2 in the hole. We're trying to place ladders down to see if I can self-rescue right now.
Okay.
700 Bravo, Montgomery.
TR 700 Bravo.
Okay, can I get a CRT upgrade call, or is it the full CRT assignment with all 29 and 45 units?
It's the full TRT assignment.
Okay, thank you. CRT officer. Okay, CR 700 Bravo, go ahead. Worker trapped up to his thighs. Otherwise, he appears uninjured at the moment. Patient is conscious, breathing on his own. All other personnel have been moved away from the site. And when you get here, we will need to start shore and removal operation. Okay, just work on securing sources of vibration, any sources of power, any running equipment around the trench. And start any kind of medical treatment of the patient that you can if you have any access to it.
This is you talking to Captain Allen en route.
Information on the depth
Command
of which
officer.
the trench. Trench is approximately 10 feet long. Copy. And on your arrival, there is a parking lot where all CRT units can stage 9807 Veirs.
All right, guys, we can. That's it's not confusing. It's hard to listen to. So tell me what you're asking.
So basically, just the dimensions of the trench, where the patient is, and I was also giving a little bit of instruction just in case anybody, maybe it slipped in anybody's mind. Hey, let's eliminate
What is that
vibrations.
instruction?
So I just wanted we need to eliminate sources of vibration
Okay.
anywhere on the trench, running equipment. If there's any, do we have water running in the trench? Can we shut down the utilities? Shut down the water at the street if we can, stuff like that.
Okay. So just really friendly reminders more than ever. Stage everybody here. Don't approach the trench. Reduce vibration. The research style stuff.
Right.
Okay. So you get on the scene. Tell me your kind of initial assessment.
So I'm just basically reviewing the things that he communicated to me already, which was, how many people do I trap? What's the condition of the patient? What type of trench collapse am I dealing with? The dimensions of the trench. Basically formulating a plan in my head about, okay, how are we going to shore this? What do we need to do to care for the patient, or do we need to just go ahead and dig them out, get them out? Those kinds of things. Also, where am I going to park my units? Make sure I get equipment into the scene, and how am I going to start utilizing personnel in the scene to make all that happen?
So was there anything and Captain Allen said what his initial actions were, with his 4 people. Is there anything in addition that he did, looking back, right, hindsight, that he could have done X that would have really helped this event?
I don't think there's anything significant. I think there's a few things that field personnel can do, which is in any call, a confined space call, a trench call. They can start metering. Every heavy apparatus carries a meter. So if you can start getting some readings of what type of atmosphere we have.
Around the trench?
In the trench,
Okay.
around the trench, in a confined space environment, if you can, you should have a hose there to help you reach
Okay.
those areas.
And then just kind of relay that to you. And again, it's,
Yeah.
the captain was overwhelmed with things to do. There's a lot of events.
Right.
Even a house, we're just overwhelmed all the time.
Right. We're gonna do that anyway, those actions, but you have to have that information, at least relay it to us as soon as we get on the scene, talk to the TRTO, who should hopefully stand out to you or approach you, talk to you. That's what I did. I consulted with command and with Captain Allen just to get an idea of what was going on.
And this stuff is identified. We put it on the daily briefing anyway, right? But I don't know
Yes.
that, I worked yesterday. I don't know if I knew who the TRTO was yesterday. It's probably just not something that I pay that much attention to.
Right.
All right, so you get on the scene, you start to assess this stuff. What is your game plan with this event?
We knew that we could quickly shore the area around this victim with just one set of panels, and that's basically gives us a 4-foot wide working area to at least get 1 or 2 personnel down there to start assessing and digging out the
A panel is a 4x8
Yes.
piece of wood.
It's like plywood, essentially.
Okay.
So we were able to start doing that right away, get panels set and access to the patient very quickly, and then expand out from there as far as
And
setting.
do you have the ability to do that with the 5 people that you bring from 31, or do we need to wait for Rescue Squad 729, potentially 25 to get there?
We're able to start. It's always nice to have more personnel, but I can get started with 5 people. It's more important that I get, and what happened on this call, we got a lot of set of hands from other units like 32's engine and some of 3's units to help carry equipment over to the trench side and things like that, because we just didn't have enough personnel to make all that happen very quickly. So.
Okay. You're coming from 29, right?
Yep.
So what are you listening for and thinking about and doing on your way down 270?
So I see all the updates because I have the NBC in front of me. I'm listening to him. One of the things 29 is responsible for is if their units are out and they can't get all the equipment out the door, 29 is supposed to go to 31 and get whatever else out. So, heard the units marking.
So you have 3 people. You're bringing that ginormous ass rescue squad that we have, and potentially stopping at 31 to pick up whatever.
If we have to, yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm just listening to what he's saying. I'm going to find him when we get there, figure out what he needs, and come up with a game plan.
Okay. How often do you work at 29?
Not that often.
So do generally the rescue squad drivers, is everybody there a TR guy?
For the most part.
Or gal?
They might have some new guys that are still working on their stuff, but
Okay.
most of the shift at 29 is pretty well.
Okay, so it's not Brady Miller on overtime work, riding the back step of the rescue squad, just riding along to ride along? Okay. So we get there, what happens next? And either one of you.
So I was just going to elaborate on the manpower, right? We said
Okay.
10 people. The panels themselves are actually pretty heavy. So if you can picture, it probably takes 2 or 3 guys to set that. And when we say set that, right, carefully around a human being laying in the bottom of the trench. So, you kind of commit your people to putting a panel in on this side and then another 3 maybe on that side. As soon as you get them set, you want to have somebody ready with shores to be able to shoot in between them.
Do we do that from top, or do we get down in there to do that?
So from the top initially, because you can't start committing people to the trench until it's somewhat secured.
Okay. So it's taken really 10 people to put this shoring in place.
Yeah.
So I guess as engine 732, engine 702, I really become what, a manpower, right? I'm carrying these.
Yep.
I'm used to carrying heavy stuff for my paramedics, so a little wood isn't going to bother me. But so that's really where we come into play once the team gets there.
Yeah, so obviously you want to wait for direction on what we need, but, I basically assigned somebody to the truck just to be able to pull out equipment and hand it to guys so they could carry it over.
Okay.
So that's, I'm already down to 4 people at the trench side. I'm trying to just supervise, so I'm not really putting my hands on things. So, yeah, obviously we needed those extra personnel to come in, and for my role and Logan's role here, the TRTOs are going to have to take 2 different kind of tasks. One's going to be really supervising the operations. The other one's going to kind of act as a command liaison. I'll be talking to the command officers, EMS duty officers, all sorts of people to try to make things flow a little more smoothly.
And this event, how many personnel ended up showing up on scene? Do we know? Or can we guess? I mean, was it a box alarm full of people? Was it 30 people, 40 people?
I mean, probably close to that.
Yeah.
And what was the duration of it?
So we were just under an hour, I think.
To remove this victim
Yeah.
from the trench?
Yeah.
Okay, and kind of walk me through, we get panels in place, then what happens?
Once panels are in place, we're getting personnel in the trench to start digging them out, assessing the patient. Maybe you can get a medic down in there to start taking care of the patient. For us, it was rotating personnel. It was a very hot, humid day, so we were working in sets of 2. And
So our
basically,
work periods are kind of short,
yeah,
right?
you're talking about 10, 15 minutes maximum, and then rotating those personnel, putting more in. So in our second set of people, we were able to get a paramedic down there to start really getting a hands-on assessment of that patient and get him some ALS care.
And is the paramedic in the back of my engine and a paramedic on the team? I mean, I guess one's certified to get into a trench, right? But are their skills different? Are they able to do different things? Are they looking at different things? Would you use the paramedic from the back of my engine to help?
Certainly, Logan, you want to talk?
I would say their exposure, the medics on TRT have that exposure and the exposure working in a trench. The county tried to do like an ancillary class for TRT medics, and I think it's a designation in telestaff. So those would be like our first choice to put in the hot zone, if you will, to do this stuff. I'm not saying we wouldn't necessarily use a medic if it came down to it and we could safely secure everything. You got to strike that balance between getting ALS to the patient now or getting that patient out now so
Yeah.
that they can get that ALS going and take them to the
Certainly.
hospital.
And obviously every situation is going to be a little different, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's again what you guys are thinking about and weighing, right? So, and this patient was trapped or buried just to their waist, right? So,
Right.
to get everything in place to remove the patient, provide care was an hour,
Right.
just to kind of put things in perspective.
Yeah, so you're dealing with quite a bit of digging. It's very tedious digging. It's with hand shovels and little buckets of dirt coming up out of the trench, just because you want to be very careful near a patient's limbs. You don't know how they're injured. You can only see, the top half of them, so you don't know what else is going on. Ends up the patient was actually entangled with a pipe in the trench, so we couldn't.
So
tell
he was
that.
not only buried,
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
entangled.
So that took an extra 10 minutes or so just to try to work him around the pipe that he was
Really?
tangled with.
Okay. And they ended up flying this patient out. Is that correct?
Yep.
So was that one of your early considerations, Captain? Or?
I didn't consider it. It was something that was done at the command post level. Now, whether that was with consulting the EMS duty officer, but it makes total sense. We're going to be there for a while. We need to get the patient, to an appropriate care facility, and as long as these guys were available to do it, it worked. It just worked out. And the helicopter was there. I think the crew was at the trench side for probably 25 minutes prior to them even getting him out. So, the care went right to aviation from the second the
So
patient
we
left the
removed him. How did
trench.
we remove him from the trench? I guess I didn't ask.
Good, do you want to speak to that?
So the guys in there digging, right, they figured out how trapped he was, figured out that he was entangled in something, and very meticulously dug him out. So in the ends of the trench, we have the ladders, right, in case we need to evacuate. One of the things we practice is using the ladder to extricate. So we put an LSP down in the hole to somewhat immobilize the patient. Stokes basket would just be too cumbersome down there, too big. And once we got him on the LSP, we can attach the LSP to the ladder. And the guys on the top side can just pull the ladder up, and almost like a seesaw, and then just rock it back on the lip of the trench, slide them right back and out. And then they can just unclip them from the ladder and pass them right off to the stretcher.
So there could be rigging considerations, I guess, also, right? I mean, there's a whole gamut of things.
Yeah, there had to be a safety line involved, all that kind of stuff.
And is that end up being the technical rescue side, or is that, hey, Engine 702, let's put a 3-to-1 system in place here to help?
So in an ideal world where we had a full complement of personnel, even more than 10, if we had 20 personnel, which might be working on most days. We didn't this day. So I quickly turned to some of the other units there, like Rescue Squad 703, Tower 703, asked them to do some other tasks, which were, working with that rope system, because I knew most of those guys had some expertise just from running into them and working with them before. Ventilation, metering, things
What kind
that
of ventilation?
we use a specialty fan called a Pelsu fan that puts vents through a hose that we can put down in the bottom of the trench. But if you're dealing with another type of call, if you start metering, tech rescues a while out, 20 minutes out, you have a bad atmosphere in there. You can start venting even with a PPV fan. So
Something as simple as a battery fan.
yes.
Okay. What else? We have questions there, Chief? What else might I consider, not working in that, I worked at 25 for a number of years, but I wasn't on the team, proudly enough. What else would you say to me to consider, or actions to take that Captain Mallon might have overlooked?
I don't think there was much overlooked on this call. I think that obviously there's a lot going through a company officer's head when he's arriving on one of these calls. It's like arriving first to a house fire. There's a lot going on. So it's just doing that acre assessment of what's going on, transmitting that information to the right people, and then once tech rescue arrives on scene, just be ready to work.
Be willing to help.
Yeah, they're going to put you to work. So, just be there and have your guys, kind of keep an eye on your folks. We had a defined hot zone. We ended up putting fire line tape around it just to make sure that nobody was coming in, putting themselves in danger. Just keep an eye on your people and manage your own safety, that kind of thing.
Okay. You want to add to it?
Ladders down to them, and then shovel, if you have a shovel, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they can self-extricate. I know this guy was very distressed, and he wasn't really able to help us unbury himself. But if you've got time and you've got something nearby, he can.
So a scoop shovel in the hole to this guy, hey, start helping yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seem to remember that years ago in Gaithersburg, something along the same lines.
Right.
So I have a couple of questions for you there, Captain. And in the last couple of episodes that we have done this, we've referenced really these checklists.
Mm-hmm.
And one is on the screen now, I believe. I didn't really put a lot of thought into it until I came here and started talking about them. Have you, and saying no is okay, Jason.
Okay.
Do you reference these things or ever talk about these things or look at them, or since you've been promoted?
I know that they're there, right?
Yeah.
I know where to find them. We don't carry them in the wagon at 32.
I mean, if you did, would you look at it? I mean, you got 60 seconds until you're on the
Exactly,
scene.
that's what I'm saying. Honestly, if these were in the wagon at 32, I don't think I would have had time to reference it going down the road.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I get out of the wagon with it. But, I did go back and look at it, I don't know, a couple of shifts afterwards. And I think I hit a lot of the stuff on the list without checking boxes. And that maybe comes with, the amount of time I've been doing this job, just
Certainly.
things that I think of. Yeah, but it's probably not a bad idea to print these out and put them in the rig, right? Maybe have them laminated and, put them in a folder. But And we carry a lot of stuff in the front of the wagon.
Yeah, we do.
So,
We do.
I don't know if I have another space to put a map book or.
Well, we're gonna
this
get you a
in there.
unit the size of that rescue squad so you can carry this shit.
Right.
2 questions? Okay.
I think this one was already talked about somewhat. So somebody asked about, do the TRT units have MDCs? And that would be all. Do any of the TRT units have MDC at all?
Not currently. I know that they're working on getting that installed, and at least the main Tech Rescue 700 box truck. So
Do you find that, I'm sorry, Chief Davis, I need to ask this question because do you find that puts you really at a disadvantage?
yeah, there's a few things. I've got to call en route and all that stuff manually over the radio. I've got to navigate on my own, pull up my own maps on my phone, that kind of thing. There is a Sonim phone there that helps a little bit, but it's certainly a hindrance to not have that information, not have
Yeah.
maps, all that kind of thing.
It's almost like when you hit on scene. Look, I don't get any updates now. Like I'm not I'm on scene. I'm no longer in the fire truck.
Right.
I can't have any updates.
Right.
Yeah, so to follow up, do you guys use your Zello phones at all? Do you, and did you? This call.
You're
This
talking
call,
to a
no.
1st Battalion chief, so
Uh,
yes.
This call, I didn't really have a need for it, but it depends on the type of call. I mean, certainly on a rope rescue, if I've got to navigate somewhere. I know that on training, for instance, I'd always take the Zello phone with me just because it's less cumbersome than a radio, but I'm going to have a radio on an incident, so it just depends on the type of call.
You're a B shift guy, right?
I'm on A shift.
Oh, okay. I guess like B shift, that's a Chief Reed. You got to have it with you. So I was trying to make him.
Oh, I thought only one battalion chief
Yeah.
made you carry him, and I work for him.
Unfortunately, the truck I was on, that's kind of buried in the back of the truck, so it's not really readily available in the cab.
It's behind your checklist.
Right.
So,
So I have another. So let's just say, and this probably drives another direction. But what happens if you saw nobody in that trench?
So if I arrived on scene and I looked in the hole and there was no one in there?
Yeah.
Well, I would ask anybody standing around it,
Yeah.
if there was someone buried. Yeah,
So they say, yeah, right.
okay.
My,
Yes, I would.
my buddy's in there. So what would he have done different from the TRT folks?
I don't think much would have changed. I mean, we're going to make an attempt to try to get to where that person supposedly was, point last seen.
do our actions change? Rescue versus recovery?
I think we're going to be in a rescue mode until proven otherwise. So unless we get to the patient and, they're basically a priority 4, if we can call it that, and then we would change to a recovery mode. Things are going to slow down. We're not going to take any risks whatsoever. So
You have any technology to find them?
I don't believe so.
Thermal imager, sorry,
Well,
going with it.
I mean, yeah, that's possible, but with
What's that?
with dirt,
The
it'd be
imager.
hard,
Oh.
Yeah.
Usually the dirt that comes down on them is usually pretty cold, so it's hard to tell.
Okay.
So, kind of in the wind down, really. First, as a technical rescue, I'm going to ask you, what do you want to add to the story? Would you? I guess. What do you want to? Do you want to add anything? Would you change anything? Do you want to comment on anything?
No, I mean, I think it went relatively well. 55 minutes-ish was a good time, especially if you have somebody that was kind of entangled like that. It's not hard to get panels in and shores shot. It's just a matter of accessing the patient. For the TRT team, they train typically on, they pick a different discipline every month, and they train once a month, although the team goes twice because they can't send the whole shift at one time. So that's why it feels like the companies are always on a detail. But I've worked closely with a lot of the guys on B shift, right? And operating at the trench, we definitely appreciate the help, but sometimes it's easier to have my own guys. And then as far as, the brass showing up, being right there, giving advice, we definitely appreciate it, but sometimes I can just work better without, you know what I mean? Like
Allow me to work a little.
Yeah, I got guys, yes, it's hot out. I got guys in the trench, and you want me to continuously swap them out. I get it. I'm going to be monitoring their status. But if I get them to start digging and make 2 minutes worth of progress and they want them yanked out already, like, just let them go for a few minutes. I'm going to trust them to say, hey, I'm not good, and I'll have the next 2 ready to go in. So that I think could benefit.
And I know that you can't really answer. It's like how many fires do you go to a shift? It's not an answerable. Is this? I can't recall a ton of these events, right? This is maybe 3 or 4. Is this a once a year type?
So trench seems to be one of our busier ones of the 4 specialties. People go to seal up a basement or something, a block wall on the outside of a house. They'll dig it out real quick, and then they'll just jump down in there hoping they can get the work done before they run into any problems. And then it falls in on them, and now it generates a response from us. So I would say that, significant.
3 times a year?
Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate.
Okay. So this is an event that happens maybe 3, 4. Let's double that. 6 times a year. We train on it 3 times a year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Okay.
So I would say that a lot of times factors that involve it being less of a trench, right? There is a definition of what makes it a trench. If maybe it's not a trench, then we don't have to go through all the motions involved in the trench rescue to get somebody out. A lot of times they can self-rescue, or their buddies will have them out before we get there. So as far as dispatched, at least half a dozen times a year. But whether or not we have to engage like we did on this one, it's probably fewer.
Okay. Do you have anything that you want to add? Same question I posed.
I don't think so. I think Logan covered it pretty well there. That's really all I got.
Captain Allen? You said earlier that you've never run this call before.
No, not a legitimate one. I mean, you get there and it ends up really being an excavation more than a trench sometimes when you show up, but you get the trench call. This was the very first one, and other than my initial positioning, right?
Yeah, but
I thought
it's nothing.
Yeah, I
you
understand.
Decided, right?
Yeah.
No, you're right. But I think that I thought that it went well, right? Having these guys as close as they are to us, right? Like I said, I turned around and I could hear them coming, and I can see them making the turn at the stop sign. I think it went really well.
So have you, as a company officer, certainly you probably talked about this next shift at lineup, right, in the morning
absolutely.
time. Hey, this is what went well. This is what I think didn't go well. Have you changed your approach to any training, or even roundtable discussions, breakfast discussions with your shift?
You mean solely based on
this
style
event,
rescue, but
yeah.
anything? I mean,
Or
we always.
hell, anything.
We always talk in the fire department. I mean, you guys know how it is at lineup in the morning. There's always an armchair quarterback talking about a call that some other guy ran.
C shift sucks, but
Right, whatever. In the end, like, you want to learn from any call that anybody is on, right? And I think it was good that I had a couple of young firefighters on the engine company that had not seen this. And what's great is they didn't have to wait until they had 22 years on a job, right, to finally run this call. So they've seen this early in their career. They've learned from it. We've talked about it a few times. And so in 3 years when they run this call, they understand, hey, Captain Allen had us do this, and it was the right thing to do, so I'm going to do that too, right? But we always use the opportunity. We're kind of a busy company at 32, maybe.
you guys got a little medical locals.
And a fire occasionally. So we get the opportunity to do a lot of on-the-job training, right?
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
I think the whole organization is that way,
Yeah,
honestly. We're
yeah,
busy.
yeah.
Every
We
day,
get
all
an
day.
opportunity.
We are.
Right. Talk about buildings or walk buildings while we're in them and that kind of stuff. So, but we're constantly doing something like that at 32. When we have time, when we're not, busy doing it.
What about you two? I mean, and you have the opportunity, right? You're exposed to different things than I'm exposed to in Tacoma Park. This is part of your training regimen. It's not mine. Advice to me. What would you give? Either one of you. What would you tell me?
I would just say go over the basics. Make it a 5-minute discussion at the lineup table. At least just mention it. Guy jog
like
some
something
guy's
like
memory.
these checklists.
Yeah, the IRP. Maybe a video. Maybe you pull up a YouTube video of some call somewhere from here or elsewhere and take a look at it and discuss it. So just like you know, for instance, at 31, I'm not exposed to that many high rises. It's probably more of a discussion at your table about a high rise fire. So just get out the box, get out of the box a little bit and start talking about some different things. So.
What would you say?
Pretty much the same thing. You know, just reviewing the basics, you know, from that, you know, that ACRE acronym, what the engine company is going to do when they pull up.
And, okay, well, thank you.
I do want to add,
Yeah.
We said we'd talk about MOSH, right?
Okay,
The importance of actions taken by the first arriving units and related to
so
MOSH.
this probably is better directed towards either one of you. Mosh is obviously involved in an event like this, correct? What do I think about? How do I convey that information? What kind of information are they going to seek from us, the fire rescue?
It's pretty basic. They're just going to interview you and find out what the conditions were when you arrived. Where was the victim? What did you see around the trench? What were the workers doing? You know, what did they tell you? That kind of thing. That's all they asked from us. You know, I shared with them our shoring plan, just check to make sure that they were comfortable with what we had.
So they're there prior to us getting in. They're there pretty fast?
They were there within an hour. So I believe we had the victim out, but we hadn't even torn down our shoring at all. So they were there pretty quickly.
So as first arriving, Captain Allen first arriving, just kind of make a mental picture of that stuff?
Yeah.
Hey, how many people are here? How many people are in a trench? What equipment is in the trench? What equipment is running?
Right.
What are the actions of the workers?
Exactly. Yep.
I do have one last question for you that I just thought of there, Jason. You said there was a language barrier.
Yes.
When you arrived. What challenges did that bring to you?
Well, it was obvious early on that there was only one person there that spoke English. Everybody else.
Nobody in your fire truck is
No.
okay.
So you had to route everything through that guy, right? And I think he was the person in charge, if you will, right? So you're having to ask him to ask the other guy, can he move? You know, trying to get that information. So that was a difficult thing to try to go through. Also trying to isolate it and deny entry because obviously there's a lot of emotions. Like I said, I think they had been trying to get him out on their own for a little while. So to also have him relate to the other people there, hey, stay away. You know, they kept coming back into our hot zone, right? Getting close to the edge of the trench, you know, talking to the guy in the trench, that kind of thing like that. So that was a challenge initially to try to get that taken care of. Yeah.
How common is secondary collapse? Is it all kind of dependent on soil and size and all of that stuff?
I mean, certainly, we're going in the trench. We're disturbing soil that's already weakened. Obviously there was an issue in the first place. It wasn't stable in the first place. So certainly the risk is always there, and that's why we have to shore.
So it's right at the top of our list. Like this laddering that Captain Allen did, or the Company 32 did, and the ground pads that you placed down. That's an immediate. We're not allowing this to expand.
Yeah, and hence the reason why we eliminate vibration within 200 feet or yards of the trench.
So it's real. We're not just talking about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly a concern.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions, Chief? All right, well, thank you guys. I thank you for coming in and sharing your story. Captain Allen, thank you for coming in on your Kelly Day.
Anything I can do to help.
Sharing your story. I do want to make note of a couple of things that are coming up. November 22nd, we're doing something new. We're doing really a crossover, a hybrid Boss Talk and From the Command Post. We're doing it about the fire on Glenmont Circle. It'll be from Company 18, and it'll be the first arriving unit officers for that event, plus the command officer. So it'll be myself and Chief Cooper kind of moderating our way through that. I think I'm pretty comfortable saying, Chief Davis, probably an hour and a half, right? I mean,
we're going to allocate 90 minutes to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Very challenging event. It ended up being a big event. And then we're kind of trying something new. We're going to talk to the command officers and the unit officers at the same time. see where that takes us. And then that's November 22nd. Then on November 29th, we're doing challenges in the streets here from the Training Academy on lithium-ion batteries and some of the challenges that those present, and the couple of the events that we've had here recently that have involved those. So until then, thank you and be safe, and we'll see you next time.